everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you the biggest differences that I noticed between working at a public school district and working at a charter school. So for those of you that don't know, I have been teaching for 3 years now. I actually
just stopped teaching.
So for my first 2 years of teaching, I taught at 2 different schools in 2 different public school districts in 2 different states. And for my last year of teaching, I taught at a charter school. So I want to kind of talk to you about the different things that I noticed, some similarities, what I liked about each of them, what I didn't like about them, and all that kind of stuff. So I do want to start off by saying that I am only able to speak from my experiences. There might be plenty of other differences and similarities depending on what charter school you're at, what public school district you're at. That's going to range all across the country. However, these are the experiences that I had. This is what I noticed working at the schools that I worked at, and I just feel like this could be helpful information for somebody who's trying to decide public versus charter. So the first school district that I worked for was a huge district in the state of Maryland. It probably had over 150 schools. It was massive, but we functioned all under one superintendent as one county. So very big space to cover, but we had one superintendent. The next school district that I worked for was down in Charlotte, North Carolina. This one, once again, as one district, had probably over 100 schools. It was very, very massive, covered the whole city of Charlotte, and that was our public school district. And then the charter school that I worked at was right outside of Charlotte, and so it was kind of like the alternative for those who live in Charlotte. If they didn't want to go to the public school district, they could come to the charter school. And I'll get more into how charter schools work, but under our company, there are tons of locations all over the country. We were just one location in Charlotte, but we did have a sister school also in Charlotte run by the same company, so it's not really a district, but we had 2 schools run by the same company in that same area. Okay, so let me start off by sharing with you the reasons that I left public school districts to try a charter school. So number one, I have only taught during COVID years, so me trying to figure out where I best fit in as an educator, I feel like was just tricky overall because I didn't know really what a normal school year was. My first year was pretty normal up until the end, but I was still kind of figuring out, am I not liking where I am because of COVID? Am I not liking where I am because I don't like the district or the school? Am I not liking where I am because it's a public school district? Like, what's the problem? I liked my first school. At the time that I was there, I didn't like it for reasons that were kind of like not really school related. It was more so like my commute because I didn't live very close. I just wasn't happy being up north. As you can see, I moved down south. So there were just kind of like some outside factors that contributed to me leaving. But overall, it really wasn't a bad school. I liked being there. I loved my admin. I liked my team. Compared to my other years of teaching, it was actually pretty easy looking back. The only complaint that I really have about my first school district was the fact that it was so big. We were so big that the support was kind of lacking. And while you might say like, well, then why did you like it? I don't know how to explain it. It was just a little bit more hands-off because I feel like since then I've had such hands-on schools that I have felt like I was suffocating. So anyway, the support was lacking up there. It was so big. I feel like it's hard to just govern one county that's so big with one superintendent. How do you make decisions that are going to be best for everybody when you are covering such a big area of space? You know, you had inner city kids, you had super rural kids. It just didn't make sense, every decision that was being made for everybody. So, which I know is hard. It's not easy to do in a big school district like that, but that's just kind of how I was feeling. Second school district I went to, same kind of thing. Once again, huge area. How is one person going to govern and make decisions for everybody? But this was also a tough year because of COVID, and I just didn't feel like the school that I was at was doing it for me. I was the only kindergarten teacher. Everybody had one teacher per grade level. It was tough. It was taxing. There was not much support that was beneficial to us. It was just a really hard year. I didn't feel like the admin had our backs. So moving to a charter school, I made that decision because I really wanted to, number one, have more support. Number two, I was looking for having a little bit more creativity. I felt like under the public school district, like I said, decisions were being made above us that were affecting everybody, but they weren't the best decisions for everybody. And I had heard that in a charter school, you kind of have more of a say. The charter has more of a say in what decisions are made, and they don't have to follow the public school. So I thought that would be awesome. And then number 3, I had friends that worked there and they really spoke highly of it. And so I just thought, let me give it a shot. Looking back, I'm happy that I made the decision. I'm glad that I tried it because I would not know what I know now if I hadn't tried it. And as an educator, I just feel like it's so important to look at all your options and see what's out there because there are so many options and there are some great options in there. there are some horrible options. Okay, so we're gonna start with public school. This is probably the most familiar option for educators out there. And when I say public school, I actually mean public school district, because I wanna make sure that you understand that the charter school, at least the one that I worked at, and many of them are also public schools. Your public school district, it's assigned to you. That's where you are supposed to go. Everybody has the right to go there. It is going to be governed by one superintendent, and they are the person, and the Board of Education, they make the decisions for the district. And they make the decisions based off of state standards, government laws. They have rules and they have laws that they have to follow. Going along with that, the curriculum that they choose to use has to, once again, follow those rules and laws and make sure that they're hitting all the standards that they need to hit. And then that curriculum is going to be given to the schools, and the schools are told that they have to use X, Y, and Z. So it's very much so governed from above, and there is not much leniency. You can't really deviate from it just because it's a school district. You have to kind of work together as a union. Going along with that, school districts do have unions. So if you work in a school district, public school district, you as a teacher have the chance to be in the union if you would like to be. The union protects you. They protect your pay. They protect your time. They basically give you a voice. They stand up for you. Unions will go on strike together if they are not happy. Unions will fight for what they want. Unions will stick together and make sure that they are being treated fairly and make sure that they are getting what they deserve to get, which is honestly a really nice feature, because it's hard in education to protect your time, and it's hard to protect your money, and the little money that educators make, you want to protect it. So that was a really nice perk of being in a school district, is that you had that union. Another thing about public schools is that they're not committed to having to fill seats. And what that means is, like, your class size can vary, and mine have varied. My first year of teaching, I had 15 kids. I had, I think at max 16. My second year of teaching, which was the big COVID year, it fluctuated a lot just because of COVID. I had anywhere between 16 kids and 22 kids that year, and it could get higher, it could get lower. There was no pressure to fill seats. In my experiences in public schools, I did have different support staff given to me to use, since it was I was the beginning teacher for the first couple of years. And so that was a thing for me. I don't know if that goes the same for other public schools, but I will say that we had a lot of great resource teachers. But I will say that I noticed that those resource teachers fluctuated. If they needed to cut budget somewhere, resource teachers would be the ones to go. So it kind of depended on where the money was at, but things did fluctuate a good bit in public school because of the budget. So now we're gonna go ahead and talk about the charter schools, and I'm gonna go a little bit more in depth on charter schools because this is where I feel like people are not as knowledgeable and would like to know more. So number one, charter schools are run by a company. So my company was based out of a different state than I actually work in. They have schools all over the country, and they are stationed out of a state other than the one that you might actually be working in. So like I said, though, my charter school had a sister school also in the same city. So we did have like somebody to kind of go to. The other school, I believe, was built before ours, so we often referenced them and like did stuff that they did. We didn't have a superintendent, but our higher ups, we called them different things. They came out of the head office. So we did have that. Like I said, my school was K through 8. The schools can vary. They could be K through 5, K through 6, K through 8. We did not have a partner, like a designated partner high school to go to. A lot of our kids did go to a specific high school. I believe that they were building one sometime, or they were talking about getting funds for it, but it's not like necessarily guaranteed that if you go to a K through 8 school or whatever, K through 6, that you're gonna then also have a middle school and a high school to go to. Now, the kids that could come to my school, all that it took to qualify is that you had to live in the state of North Carolina. So you could be driving a good distance to come to school if you wanted to. That was up to you. Most of them, it's a lottery system. For mine, it was definitely a lottery system. Public schools, you are kind of zoned into your elementary school, your middle, your high. That's your district. That's where you're supposed to go. The charter school, you can apply to many different charter schools. People would often apply to many of them, and then like they'd have like their top pick, and they would just kind of hope to get into one of them. And so then once they got in their top pick, they might just drop the other ones. Now, if you have siblings, sometimes that gets you in a little quicker to than somebody else. Like if your sibling already goes to the school, sometimes they will prefer you over others just to kind of get the families all in there together. But it's a lottery system overall. Another thing about my charter school was that there were no buses. Every parent or guardian or somebody had to drive their kid to school every day and had to pick their kids up. So let me tell you, drive line was long because we had K through 8 and like 800 families in this school that needed to be picked up and dropped off in the day. So that was just something else. Not all charter schools are like that. I know that some of them around here do have buses. Mine specifically did not have buses. So another big difference between the charter schools and the districts is that we do not necessarily have unions. I believe most charter schools do not. Mine did not. that gets hard, and I really didn't know how beneficial having a union was until I came to the charter school and saw what a difference it made to not have one. Your pay is not protected. Your time is not protected. I feel like those are the two big things. I've seen so many things, especially with this past year with COVID, how there's a lack of subs, there's a lack of teachers. Teachers were being forced or asked to go cover other people's classes because nobody else was. And in public schools, I saw statements being released saying that they were now going to pay their teachers, like if you have to take your lunch break or something to go cover another class, you were going to get paid for that time. That doesn't happen in charter schools. There is no one to fight for your time and to advocate for you to get paid for your time. So we did not have a lunch break. My lunch was when the kids ate, but you know, if you're a teacher, that's not a lunch because I have 30 kids in there who need help. I no longer got recess. The time that I did have was planning, and that was about 40 minutes each day. However, you have to take into account that during the week we would have PLCs one day for planning. We would have team planning. We would have meetings with our deans also. So parent meetings, all of that goes in your planning time. So planning was kind of very rare to have too. I was with my kids from 7:15 in the morning until 3:30 in the afternoon, and I might maybe on good days get 40 minutes as a break, but that was about it. So your time was not protected. Going along with pay though, your pay is also not protected. In a public school district, you get a raise each year. The same goes for a charter. However, what I noticed about pay, at least for my school, was that the public school district started you off at a lower salary. The charter school started us off at a higher salary. But the raise that you got each year, the public school raise was higher than the charter school raise. So that was something that I noticed. I also noticed that in my state, they did not honor master's pay in the public school districts, and the charter school did. That was another big reason that I left, to have a master's and to not get paid for it. I just kind of felt like that wasn't fair. So there was that too. So once again, it did boost my pay up higher, but the raise that I was getting each year was going to end up being less than what the public schools got, because the public schools have the union, and the union will fight for making sure that they get that raise each year. The charter school, it was kind of, this is what we think we're going to give you, but it could change. Okay, another big difference is that in our charter company, they were creating all of the curriculum. So difference here is that our curriculum does not have to, we have state standards and stuff, but we don't have to follow what the public school districts are doing. So our company creates their own curriculum. The only curriculum that was not created by them that we were using when I was there was math. I'm sure that they are in the works of making their own. So everything came from the higher ups. Oftentimes, and people know this all across the board in education, oftentimes the people that are creating curriculum were never actually teachers, were never in the classroom, don't actually know what goes on and what's reasonable and what's realistic and all of that. So our curriculum was very much so not realistic. It wasn't realistic for a COVID year, especially, but the people that were writing it, a lot of them have never been in a classroom. A lot of them don't know it. They are just in the corporate world, and that's exactly what they are. They're corporate people, because this is the business. Charter schools are run like a business. My principal always told us that our parents are our customers. Customers come first. The customer's always right. Like, that was how we functioned, because we were a business. So the curriculum was very word for word. Here is your script to read, and they wanted it followed with fidelity, absolute fidelity. And I don't want to make this video a video into why I left teaching, but that's one of the biggest reasons that I left, because it was impossible to follow that with fidelity. It was a COVID year, but just in general, there was so much packed into our day. We had so many subjects and so many things that they wanted from us. It was very tricky to follow with fidelity, but that's just how our company was. So some charter schools, they might be a little more lenient. Mine had strict curriculum that they wanted us to follow, and they wanted us to follow word for word what it was. These are just two kind of random things that I thought was interesting. I don't know if this is all charter schools or not, or a big chunk of them or not. We didn't have a library, and we also didn't have a cafeteria. The kids ate in our classroom, which is why we were on lunch duty. Something else about my charter school, because we were K through 8, we had deans as well. So while we had a principal who governed the whole school, we had grade bands so that we were separated into smaller cohorts, so that we had a dean that oversaw us. So I reported directly to my dean, and if I had a problem or a student had a problem, we would go to my dean first. I will say that my principal really did not have much of a presence in our school, and I don't know if that's charter schools. I don't know if it was just my charter school. We barely saw her. I maybe interacted interacted with her a handful of times while I was there. Even when I left, I didn't hear anything from her. She just was not a face of our school, if you will. We did still do state testing in our school, just like the public school districts do. Same with like holiday schedule and everything. Our calendar looked very similar to the public school district because we had a lot of kids who might have siblings in the public school district but also came to our school, so we did follow those things pretty similarly. Okay, so the last big thing that I want to point out about charter schools, and I feel like this is very important when kind of figuring out where you want to be. Charter schools, because like I said, they're a company and they're run by a company and they are corporate people, they get paid, their budget comes from how many kids' butts are in a seat. So my principal, that was her big thing. She was always pushing and pushing and pushing. We need to have our kids' butts in a seat because that is how we got money. For every day that a kid's butt was in each seat, we got, I forget how much money it was like $200 some. I do want to point out though that the money that we were getting is not coming from parents. It was not like a private school where you pay for your kid to go to the school. Charter schools are a public school. They are just an alternative. So if you are not fond of your public school district, you are offered an alternative, a free alternative of somewhere else to send your kid. Our class sizes, we were supposed to max out and we were supposed to stick to. We should always have 28 kids in our class. That was supposed to be our max. Now, in the beginning of the year, they overfilled them because they know, like I said and kind of explained, that people will join many charter school wait lists and they'll pick the ones that they want. So we knew we were going to lose some kids, but we don't always lose enough to bring it down to 28 exactly. So they overfill. I think my first class list had like 32 kids on it, something like that. Now, mine did drop down to 29, so I was still one over our limit. But every day that a kid is sitting in one of those seats, we get money for them. So they push so hard to, you know, talk to the parents, make sure they're coming, get in contact with them because we want to get the money. I mean, that's how our school functions. So with that being said though, who doesn't want money? Every school wants money, and if that's the main reason that they get money or the main source of getting money, they are going to fill your class. So you would never, in my school, you would never have less than 28 kids. And honestly, most of us had more than 28 kids. So we were overfilled and our classroom size was small. There was one teacher. We did not have assistants. Like I said, there were no breaks during the day. Like you were with those kids all day long. We were overcrowded is what it was. I hate to get real biasy and everything in this video, but I just think that it's so easy for people who are not in the classroom to, you know, say these things and do these things. Yeah, overfill them. We want all the money we can get. I get that because they have that business mindset. But from a teacher's point of view, I mean, we were the ones struggling. We were the ones that were having to actually deal with all the kids every day in the circumstances that we had. So it was tough. That was probably the biggest thing that I did not realize going into a charter school that I wish that I had. So the last thing that I want to share with you about the charter schools is that, like I talked about with the public schools, I noticed that resource teachers were always kind of moving around depending on the budget. They were the ones to kind of, you know, be flexed and everything. In our charter school, at least in our company, we always had people hired, or we were supposed to, always had people hired called TIRs, so teachers in residence. These were just flex teachers. They could be used as long-term subs. They could be used as everyday subs. They could be used as extra support. Most of the time they were used as subs, and oftentimes the goal of them is to get their own classroom. So if they become a long-term sub and then they take over that class, if a teacher leaves mid-year, they would take over that class. So the TIRs, they were great for everyday subs and everything, but we did have people on hand. So we were never supposed to be like short-staffed. Now this year was kind of hard, and I will give them that because it was COVID. People were just not looking to come and sub and be teachers, honestly. So those are really the big differences and similarities that I have for the schools. If you're looking for me to give you my overall opinion on would I go back to a charter or stick to public districts if I were to go back to teaching, I would definitely stick to public districts. I think that there are some really big key factors in public school districts that charter schools are just lacking on. Not to say that all charter schools are like that though. There might be some great ones out there, and I would love to see and hear from you guys. If you work at a charter school, if you love it, what's different about your charter schools than what I experienced. I think it's so interesting that there are these other options that people don't really know much about, and they could be great options. Just for me, with the experience that I've had, I think I would go back to a public school district. So if you guys have any more questions, please leave them down in the comments below. I tried to include everything that I could think of, but I'm sure that I've missed some things, and I would love to hear from you guys if you had a different experience or have questions regarding my experience. So let me know. And that's it for our video. So I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye!